Dang, this book's about to make me dead inside, if you know what I'm saying. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Canine Cannibalism. Today, we are going to be taking a look at Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison. The book is 162 pages long. It's pretty short. The text is pretty big. I would say you could read it in a couple of sittings. I will give you a blurb really fast. There's a security guard who I will refer to throughout this video as Caesar, and there is a maternity doctor by the name of Helen. The security guard likes having sex with dead women, and the maternity doctor likes eating dead babies. And the book is about their relationship. Cool. We're going to be doing a few different things in this video. We're going to be doing the most important thing, a trigger warning. First and foremost, very in-depth, going to go over all of the shit that might upset you if you were to read the book. Also going to be doing a general review, my thoughts about the writing, the reading process, the general where the book falls on my little spectrum of epicness. I just used the word epicness unironically. But I'm not going to cut it out. Where the fuck was I? Fucking spectrum of epicness, right? General thoughts about some of the issues in the book, general thoughts about some of the things I really liked about the book, and then we're going to be doing a quick plot summary. After the plot summary, we're going to be looking at some of the scenes that were very interesting and unique to this book, and then we're also going to be looking at some of the direct quotes from the book that made me howl with laughter. And then also we're going to be doing, I have a couple of things to say that are going to be pretty heavy spoilers. So I will do that after the plot summary and probably right before I do the scenes. So if all that sounds great, stick around, skip around, depending on what the fuck you want. You want the trigger warning and nothing else? We're about to get into the trigger warning right now. So if you were to pick up a copy of Dead Inside and read it, you would find all of the following. First and foremost, you have your gore, your mutilation, and your death. Not so much torture in this one, I will say. A lot of death, a lot of dead people, a lot of bodily mutilation, and a lot of gore, but not a lot of torture. So that's different. Also, you have some dealing with stillbirths and dead babies and baby death. No infanticide in this one. No like direct killing of a child. But stillbirths and baby deaths and abortions and that kind of thing. I'm not going to argue with anyone about whether abortion is killing a child or not. That's not what this channel's about. I'm not in the mood for that. I'm never in the mood for that. So let's just not have that conversation. Also, with that, you have cannibalism. If you couldn't glean that from the blurb I gave you. Also, there's some wound fucking, and this is a first for the channel, some skull fucking. We've never had that before. Also, self-harm and suicide. Kind of suicide. Yeah, no, definitely suicide. And then there's some sexual abuse. Not a lot of alive people sexual abuse, but a whole shit fuck ton of necrophilia and necrophilic acts. There are also some descriptions of sexual abuse, like rape, and then of sex fetishes. But that is more like brief mentions of things that have happened in the past, if you understand what I'm saying. And then also there's some child abuse. Not a lot, at least with living children. See, this whole thing is like a gray area because, like, is that really child abuse since it's just a dead body anyway? Again, that's not a conversation I'm having here either. You can make up your own moral judgment about whether that's child abuse or not. I'm not going to decide that for you. I'm just going to tell you what the fuck's in the book. So there's descriptions of child abuse. Again, like with the sexual abuse, it's like brief references to things that have happened in the past. My uncle fucked me, that kind of thing. But in this book, it's more my uncle fucked me and I loved it, which is, you know. And then also, again, some dead baby and abortion stuff, specifically having intercourse with dead babies. So I don't really know if that's child abuse per se, considering it's a corpse, but again, that's up to you to decide. And that is all of the stuff in the trigger warning. Now, let's discuss the book a little bit, huh? Shall we? All right. So, on my spectrum, genital grinder over here, wacky, fun-loving bullshit that has no writing styles garbage or blah 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 blah, etc. If you have read Genital Grinder, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Off season over here, decent, on the cusp of being just decent horror in general, decent normal horror, but it's still a little gritty, still very gritty in some aspects, still very disturbing, and then a whole bunch in between. Now I'm happy to say today, since I love both of these extremes, that we are more closer to an extreme today, as opposed to something like the slob. We are comfortably over here, right up against like Genital Grinder, like they could touch tips if they were naked. I loved this book. Specifically, I loved the first 2/3 of the book, and then I kind of got a little bored. We will talk about that a little bit. But I really enjoyed this book. I mean, I didn't notice anything very particular about the writing style. I like how it is written as if it's a journal. I found that to be very helpful to the comedy and to the just the satirical nature of the book. But I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the writing style. Nothing jumped out at me as like this is incredible or this is fucking terrible. So can't really talk to you about that. Overall, the plot was fine. I do have one slight complaint. I mean, there was only like really one really gross scene. This is commonly, or this is one of the most common DNFs did not finish that I can find, at least according to people on the internet. Like this Zola, and then I mean like people who just get into splatterpunk and extreme horror and then read Playground. Playground is very commonly a DNF because people don't know what they're getting into. They read whatever, like page 49 or whatever it is with Geraldine and her boy toy guy, and they're like, what the fuck? And then also Hog is kind of a DNF for some people, but that's more of a niche book. But this is commonly a DNF, and I get it, but also there's only one scene that's like super bad, and then there's the ending, which is not as bad, but still kind of bad. I will talk about both of those scenes a little bit. So I'm just kind of I expected it to be more. I expected there to be more gross shit with the way I've heard it talked up, but if I had gone in knowing how it was going to be, that's my issue a lot, is I go in with a lot of other people's opinions already in my head and a lot of other people's testimonies already in my head, and I really shouldn't. That kind of ruins part of the experience for me because I end up not getting what I'm expecting, and then that ruins part of it. So if you go into this book having understood what I'm telling you, I think you will like it a lot more than I did, because I kind of got bored after 2/3 after all the really gross shit happened. But what can you do? That's what happens to us as human beings. You just absorb all that information. God, I sound like the fucking main character. Some things I very specifically liked about the book. I liked the character. But that comes with a caveat that we will get into, but I liked the character. I liked how he puts on this front of being incredibly objective and sociopathic and secure in his position in the world and not caring about what other people think about him, while simultaneously he is, say, afraid to be in the same room with people who are dying. He doesn't want to watch them die. And he's also very insecure if you actually read with how he interacts with other people. And he's actually, he so desperately wants to not be normal, but he simultaneously is pretty normal, aside from the fact that he fucks dead girls. Another thing I really enjoyed about the book was that it is pretty clearly intended to be humorous and satirical about that kind of person, the kind of person who's like, I'm so edgy and cool, and I don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks. I'm a weirdo. I have a twisted widow mind, that kind of shit. I liked the satire. There were many scenes and lines, of which some I will read to you in a bit, that made me burst out laughing. And it did help that I was reading most of the book out loud to my girlfriend. But that shit was still so fucking funny. The first thing I wrote down, it just came so out of left field and kind of set the tone for the rest of my reading. It was so good. Parts of this book were so fucking good. I highly recommend this book. With that said, I do have some complaints. Now, I said I liked the character. That is true for most of the time. However, clearly, at certain points, it is meant to be satirical. It is meant to be, he's this, he puts on this shell of being this necrophiliac sociopath who doesn't give a fuck about what anyone thinks and wants so desperately and is outside of the norm, while simultaneously being very insecure, very normal, more than he thinks he is, and just very insecure with himself, even though he pretends to be very secure with himself. And that's how he's written half the time. And that's good. It's not the best satire I've ever read. I mean, it's very on the nose, but it's good. I like the depth of the character. And then the other half of the time, he is written to be an edgy necrophiliac sociopath who is outside of the norms with very little depth. And it's very apparent that that's all he is. And I don't know if that's the author trying to add more depth or going another layer deeper into the satire, or if that's just the author kind of messing up a little bit with how he wanted to frame the character. Personally, I am more inclined to believe the second option, that the author got a little lost in the sauce and accidentally wrote the character to be what he is pretending to be, but he's not really supposed to be. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't like it very much. I much preferred when he was just he was one thing, but he pretended to be another. And it was kind of threw a wrench in my reading when all of a sudden he would just be the thing he pretends to be. It was kind of jarring, and I think of it as more of a writing flaw than I do another layer to the satire. I will just say that. That's pretty much all I can say without spoilers. So let's give a quick plot summary. Now, major spoiler warning. Blah, blah, fucking throw it up on the screen, whatever. Security guard, probably by the name of Caesar, due to some weird shit that happens later in the book. If you read between the lines, I would assume he's named Caesar. He fucks dead girls. He works at a hospital. That's his character. He fucks dead girls in the morgue. He meets a girl named Helen who is a maternity doctor working at the hospital. And he finds her going to the morgue. He becomes infatuated with her after an incident occurs at the hospital, and he's present for the incident, and he's been watching her on the security cameras. He realizes she goes down to the morgue after a baby dies during childbirth, and he goes down and finds her eating a baby, the dead baby. They start talking a bunch, their relationship grows, they go on a date, they try to have sex, that doesn't work out because he really likes her but desperately wants to pretend that he's still a necrophile. So there's like the depth of the character, right? He desperately wants to be his abnormal self while simultaneously also wanting normal people things and wanting to avoid that. And then she offers to eat in front of him. They go to an abortion clinic. She eats a baby, starts masturbating. They fuck while she eats the baby. He falls asleep. She wakes him up, and he has sex with an aborted fetus at her request while she sits on his face. He finds out she's pregnant. They stop talking. He meets a weird guy at the bar. I wonder what that's about. He's talking about how he's always gone and his wife doesn't love him anymore and won't fuck him and blah 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 blah. And Caesar recommends he go buy her flowers. I wonder what that's about. And then she's pregnant. He wants her to abort the baby because that's like his biggest fear, is like leaving a child in the world. She doesn't want to do that. She becomes more and more like he pretends to be, while he kind of becomes more and more normal almost, or like less like he used to be, if not stays the same. But she dives into depravity and she's like, our baby girl will grow up and be a freak like us, that kind of shit. His landlord comes up and is like, hey, that guy you talked to whose wife was having problems, well, he bought her flowers and then they fucked and now she's pregnant and they're going to be a happy family. I wonder what that could be about. He describes Helen's house as having things in it that he like rifles on the walls that he wouldn't think a woman like her would have. I wonder who the strange businessman could be. Anyway, he gets a call from Helen one day and she tells him that their baby has died. He is elated and goes to her house to comfort her, even though he doesn't really want to find that she is planning to cut the child out of herself and eat it. She does this. She asks him to fuck her. He declines and says, when you are dead. She eats the baby out of herself. She dies. And then he fucks the ever-loving shit out of her. He ejaculates. He goes and takes a shower. And then, oh my god, the businessman pulls up and he was actually her husband all along, and it all clicks in Caesar's head, and the book ends. Yeah. Notable scenes. There are the ones that I told you about. He fucks dead bodies. He fucks her while she's eating a baby. He fucks her after she eats her own baby out of her stomach. And he has sex with an aborted fetus. Specifically in that scene, it starts falling apart in his hands. And its head falls off. And the author writes it as such. So, yes, I am now fucking a headless dead baby. Thank you very much. That shit gave me a giggle. I won't lie to you. That shit gave me a giggle. There's also a very disturbing scene where he has sex with a woman who was raped to death and loved it. That's the rape fetishism stuff. She was gang raped and stabbed and burned to death and is telling him how she loves it and how she's always loved being raped and how she gets to die the way she wanted, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he fucks her and describes in detail how he's extremely rough with the body. He pulls her nipples off, or her nipple piercings, rather, shoves them down her throat, comes in one of the thigh gashes on her leg. So that's interesting. The scene with Helen is very descriptive about all of, like, he sticks his arms into her cut open stomach and he pulls out one of her eyes and squishes it in his hand and then skull fucks her. And it's just a mess. It's just gross. It's not like nauseating or anything, but it's just gross. With that out of the way, I want to get to one of my biggest complaints. My biggest complaint, actually, aside from... So actually my second biggest complaint out of the two, but whatever. The businessman. Now, any self-respectable reader with a little bit of critical thinking skills would be able to figure out that the businessman is clearly Helen's husband. There are a bunch of hints to it throughout the story, from her walls being adorned with male decor. She starts to reference someone using their pronouns about how someone fixed her car, but then she stops herself. She talks about how she and someone haven't had sex for a very long time, but she stops herself from saying it. This guy shows up out of nowhere. Chekhov's random drunk man, obviously. Every piece of the story needs to be part of the story. So obviously, he is her husband. But the way that Caesar figures it out is fucking stupid. He, after having sex with Helen's body, comes downstairs and sees headlights pulling in the driveway. And all of a sudden he has the epiphany. Like, the amount of loopholes you would have to go through in order to figure out that this random guy that has, like, come into your life maybe twice thus far is somehow the husband of this woman you just had sex with who is dead. The amount of loopholes you would have to jump through to connect that those two guys are the same guy. Like, sure, maybe he would assume that it's, her husband or her friend or something. But, like, he starts replaying every conversation he's had with this guy in his mind about, like, the flowers, and there's flowers on her dining room table, and a happy couple with a baby, and oh my god, Helen was pregnant. It's like no normal human would come to that conclusion of their own free will. That's just the author laying it out for us, and that really fucking annoyed me. More than it should have. It was a page before the book ended. It's really not worth getting worked up for. It just was like one of those things where I was like, you could have just let the reader, like, figure that out for themselves. Like, yeah, no shit. Or you could have at least waited until Caesar saw the guy. Like, but you didn't. You just told him. Caesar just magnificently pulled that shit out of his ass and put it into his brain. Like, okay, I guess. Thus concludes my review of the book. However, I do have some incredibly humorous lines I would like to read to you. Those being, I've never been any kind of athlete, but am I the only person who realizes that infants are the perfect punting shape? That shit had me howling. If you were expecting 50 Shades of softcore mommy porn, you're going to be very disappointed. Again, I always tell you the gist of these. These aren't really word for word. I can't see very well with this on. This is regarding a possible death during childbirth. Christ, people are so fucking sensitive. And the last one we've got is, this isn't what it looks like, Helen says, her eyes flicking from me to the dead baby. A lot of those made me laugh out loud. Final thoughts, read the book. I would highly recommend you read the book if you're an enjoyer of the extreme horror genre. I very much enjoy it. I love that fucked shit that makes no sense. That's just way over the top for the sake of being over the top. It's wonderful, in my opinion. I had some complaints. I had some things I really liked. And that's really all I can say. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. I will respond to your comments. If you dislike the video, dislike the video. But don't disappear. Tell me why you didn't like the video so I can improve. If the video was too long, tell me the video was too long. If my voice sucks, I can't really change that, but you are welcome to tell me that my voice sucks. As always, my opinions are my opinions and my opinions alone. You are welcome to read the book. I highly recommend you read the book, form your own opinions. That is the best thing ever. I will put a URL in the description, like I always do, where you can buy the book. And that is all I have to say to you today. See ya. Damn. I wonder if he actually fucks dead girls or not.